Please ensure your microphones are on. We constantly get the complaint from people, specifically on webcam, and that they cannot hear your voices sometimes. And as you all know, the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the website within 24 hours. So firstly, I'll call for any apologies, and I don't think there are any, so I'll withdraw my call. And won't need a seconder or a mover, or won't ask them to be in favour. So item number 1 is a presentation from the Taupo Mobility Action Reference Group. On their way? Okay, so, and then we're having one from Waikato Regional Council. Are you, Waikato Regional Council, ready to go ahead now? Well, apparently these other people are just on the list. So what we'll do is use the discretion of the chairperson. I'll move to agenda item number 3, confirmation of council minutes from the 20th of July meeting. And firstly, I'd ask if there are any amendments or alterations to those minutes, please. Spelling mistakes, alterations, recordings. If there are none, I will ask for a mover and a seconder, please, for those minutes. Move, Councillor Downard, seconded. Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? Any matters arising from the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Williams.
Just one matter, Your Worship. I haven't actually on reading the minutes, I haven't actually received the A3 plan of the Taupo Airport Authority Committee minutes. I just wonder if I could receive that today, please.
Who's responsible for those? Is it? When?
Email. I do apologise.
Monday or Tuesday this week they were emailed?
Okay.
Perhaps one of the ladies, when they get a minute, will get you a hard copy. Any further matters arising from the minutes of the July council meeting? I have no queries. I wasn't here. Presenters still not here? Okay, we'll move now to agenda item number 4, Democracy and Community Engagement Manager. This is receipt of several pieces minutes. The minutes of the Mangakino Pouakani Representative Group, the Emergency Management Committee, Audit and Risk Committee, Turangi-Tongariro Community Board. So moving first to Mangakino Pouakani Representative Group. Are there any alterations or amendments? Being none. We'll move and second them all at once. So then Emergency Management Committee, any alterations or amendments to those? Sorry, Councillor Kirk.
Just a simple correction is that the meeting actually closed at 11:45 a.m. not p.m. We were quite efficient that day.
And you're referring to the Emergency Management Committee?
Yes.
So you managed to close the meeting just before lunchtime? a.m. Fine. Anything further? Audit and Risk Committee minutes of their meeting of the 12th of August. Any amendments or alterations?
No, but a comment to make on it that's worth pointing out. We had at the committee Mr. Ben Halford, Director from Audit New Zealand, present, and I think the two key things to point out: whether Mr. Halford said the relationship with Council had gone from strength to strength, and the interim report into the audit found no urgent actions that needed addressing.
Right. And the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board amendments, alterations? There being none, I'll ask for a mover and a second for all 4 sets of minutes, please. Move, Councillor Kirk. Second, Councillor Williams. All those in favour? Matters arising from starting at the Mangakino Pouakani Representative Group, please. Nothing. Moving to the Emergency Management Committee. Nothing. Moving to Taupo District Council Audit and Risk Committee. We've had the comments from Councillor Henderson regards Mr. Halford from Audit New Zealand. Anything further? Being none. Moving to Turangi-Tongariro Community Board, ably chaired by Councillor Kepper. There being nothing. Thank you. Our presenter's not here yet. Okay, moving on. In the interest of time, we will go to agenda item number 5, which is the tender contract for the Turangi Town Centre Redevelopment Skate Park. And who do we have? Andrew Bowden not here. John, Mr. Ridd, can you? I can come back to that one if you so wish.
Oh,
I'm jumbling up the agenda a little bit in the interest of time.
sorry. Item number
5.
Okay, I'll try and answer some questions in.
I can defer it and we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite.
Okay,
I can
Let's
answer any
test the water.
questions.
Councillors, do you have any questions or queries regarding this item? You wish to take it as read? Therefore, I'd ask for a mover and a seconder, please, for the suggested resolution. Councillor Keppel, I'll give you the pleasure.
I'll move. So move.
And secondly, Councillor Henderson. That the resolution on page 4, both the resolutions, 1 and 2, are being moved by Councillor Keppel, seconded by Councillor Henderson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye, moved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ridd, on behalf of Mr. Bowden. Item number 6 is tender contract for Werrita Road seal extension. And who have we got? Mr. Lewis. Welcome, Mr. Lewis. Would you like me to put this to the council as read and open for questions?
Yes, Your Worship.
And I open it for questions from councillors, please. Councillor Kirk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lewis. I do notice that 6 of the 11 companies were local. And I know that we discuss this all the time, but I know that the suggested resolution is to a Hamilton-based company, but those local businesses were given consideration.
Correct.
Thank you.
We still have that matrix that we use.
For determining the locations of seal extension, yes.
And the tender process is just lowest price
Lowest price conforming, that is correct, Your Worship.
conforming tender.
Correct, Your Worship.
Does that answer the question? Cool. Councillor Crate.
Yes, have SHIC done any work in our district before, Dennis?
Yes, Councillor Crate, they did an area-wide treatment on Broadlands Road last year.
So we've got a good record. Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Heckling.
So, Dennis, I'm assuming that there was some money rolled over from last year on this contract.
Correct, there was 109,000 that was rolled over from last year.
In our annual plan, I think
Yes.
it's
375.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. I was just doing something else.
I'd like to move the suggested
I
resolution.
just would like to point out sometimes that where you see SHIC Construction, Fulton Hogan and Taupo and Tikawiti and things like that listed beside them, they only become Taupo because they have a base here. They're actually New Zealand-wide companies. So, yeah. Just before I take that, we had a fire alarm here this morning and it's disabled our lift. So our first presenters are still waiting at the bottom of the stairs for the lift repairman. So, yeah, on their behalf, I apologise to them, and that explains why they're not here. So we have a mover with Councillor Hickling for the suggested resolution. We have a second to Councillor Crate. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Happy tar sealing. Okay, so if Waikato Regional Council is happy to move into the prime slot and be the first presenters today, while the lift people are doing some repairs, I officially welcome you here.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me along this afternoon. We've just got a few slides and a brief update on some service improvements that we've made quite recently. The front slide there has the new bus back that we've put on the local bus, highlighting Lake Taupo. So on the 29th of July, we introduced some revised timetable. I'm not quite sure how this drives. And we made the changes to the timetable in light of feedback and customer consultation. Early in the year, we came and presented to the council and got their direction in terms of how we should take the service forward. The service has been going for a number of years. The current contract expires in 2017. And I'll move quickly along to the next slide, this one here. And I just wanted to put things into perspective, really. Currently, the service carries about 20,000 trips per annum, and the fare box recovery of the current service is about 12%. In terms of our targets that we're required to achieve regionally, we have a 40% target that we must achieve by 2017. We're working very hard in terms of the rest of the network that we operate to get that fare box recovery rate up. So we've made a number of optimisation changes with the network in Hamilton and other services, and we're currently tracking at 36.7% as a regional average. So some services in our region are doing better than that, some are worse. Although you've got a 12% fare box recovery ratio, it's not the worst in the region. So take some heart in that. And
excuse me, Councillor Hickling.
So that 40%, Edwin, that's regional.
It's a regional target.
It's not individual services.
Not individual services. Okay. But in our current passenger transport plan, we do have criteria under which we will review services. So if the fare box recovery is less than 25% for any service, then we'll look at that service, how it's performing, and steps we can take to alleviate that or improve that. So I'll flick back to the other slide. So we've got the new format timetable, some different route options or service options there. So we've got Wairaki twice a day. It goes via the Hooker Fall, so there's potential to tap into potential tourism there. And we've tidied the timetable up to make it more efficient. So we've made those changes at no extra cost. So it's within the existing budget for the service. So the aim is to generate more patronage, hopefully, increase revenue, and provide a better service to everyone. So it's only been going for about a month, the new service. So we haven't got actual patronage from the new service yet, but we'll have some later on that we'll be able to share with you. And we're keeping a very close eye on how the service will perform. So some of the things that we've done, we've had a really strong push on marketing. I'm not sure if you've seen any of the marketing initiatives that we've undertaken or heard of them. Yes, no? No feedback yet? Okay. So we've had people subscribing to try and win an iPod, because that was one of the promotions we had. Use the bus, use the ticket there, or tell us where the bus stops near to you. So they've been quite popular. I think we've had over 250 local people saying this is my nearest bus stop for one of those promotions. We've timetable dropped. We've had newspaper adverts, and we're planning to do some follow-up advertising too. And the point I'd like to make is that Waikato Regional Council has done that for its own funds. So we've made that investment to try and get the service working in a better way. And there's some examples there, and you can see the bike rack on the front of the bus that we've introduced. That's the trial service, and it's the first one in the region. And we know that someone has used that bike rack already, so we're quite pleased. And so we've got this nice positive messaging around the service. So basically, it's early days in terms of the new service, and we're hoping that in 2 or 3 months' time we'll be able to give you some positive feedback on how the changes have made a difference. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about today is the changes to the Total Mobility Scheme. Previously we had one of the few places in the country which wasn't consistent with the national scheme. So we're actually moving to a nationally consistent scheme on the 1st of October. That will open up scheme membership to a wider participation, and it takes away the restriction that used to exist in terms of the town boundary limit. So instead of having a town boundary limit, there'll be a maximum fare subsidy per trip that can be paid. And so based on the research that's been undertaken, it's been set at $12.50. And that's based on the 95th percentile. So 95% of journeys on the current, looking at current data, were within that. The other advantage of moving to the nationally consistent scheme is that it attracts a higher rate of subsidy from government. So previously it was on 40% subsidy, and it will move to 60% subsidy. So that means you'll be able to do more with the same amount of money. Scheme changes take place on the 1st of October. We've set up a hotline or free hotline so people can call in and find out about the scheme changes. And that's a call centre that's open. I think it's 7 days a week, so they can phone in. I'll need to check on that, but they're able to phone through. It's a free phone number. We've been doing the training with the agencies and providers for total mobility, so they're aware of how that will transition through. So we're looking forward to that, and our existing users of the Total Mobility Scheme are looking forward to the changes too. And that's just some of the information. We've got some postcards that we've sent out to people so they're aware of the changes. The old vouchers will no longer be valid at the end of the year. So there's a transition period where you can swap vouchers over. So do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Councillor Henderson first.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Most of them are quite short, but I'll come back to some of them later on. You said it's got 12% cost recovery at the moment, and the goal is 40 by 2017. So 2 questions. What happens if that goal is not met? And if you're doing 25,000 trips per annum now, roughly how many would you estimate you'd need to be doing to meet that 40% cost recovery?
I suppose the 2 questions. The first one, in terms of fare box recovery, I have not had a discussion with our key investor, which is NZTA, saying we can't meet that target. We're on looking at how we've tracked. We've improved our regional fare box recovery by 8.5% in the last year. So we've taken great steps to move that forward. The second part, in terms of the patronage number, I suppose it depends on the type of customers we're carrying and the revenue that we can generate from them. So it's not hard and fast, but I would hope we could get up to between 40 to 50,000 trips per annum. That would be the target I'd like to see achieved.
Finish with questions, Councillor Anderson? Okay, well, considering webcam's on and we have got a little bit of an audience here today, I just want to recap something and a few issues here. So this whole bus service is paid 50% by NZTA, $200,000 approximately, and 50% by Taupo District Council, $200,000. So could you go back to your last slide, please? Yeah, no, that one you just had up there is fine. I'll get to that. So, no, the next slide, please. Yeah. So, during the Waikato Regional Council's regional annual plan, I submitted very, very strongly that I was extremely upset as the mayor of the town that we couldn't be masters of our own destiny. And what I meant by that was when I sit at work in Mairo Street on a Sunday and I see a 40-seater lumbering bus go past Mairo Street and I'm the only person in Mairo Street, I just think, why are we paying Waikato Regional Council $4,000 a month to run our bus service? And then we go out and we do all these lovely things for people with mobility disadvantages and that, and it's all branded Waikato Regional Council. Now, I submitted at the annual plan on behalf of this council for you guys to delegate the running of that bus service back to this council, to our very able people, Dennis and Claire Charland and a few others. Then we had a meeting at Waitanui with a bunch of very upset people because they stopped the bus service to Waitanui and that. Once again, I asked the CEO to ask the new CEO of Waikato Regional Council to please reply to my submission to the annual plan, which has still not been replied to, which is my request, and I'm saying it again, to return the bus service to Taupo, save us $48,000 a year to pay Waikato Regional Council, and even save you having to drive down here today, sir, in the interest of the environment, etc., etc. So when, and I'm looking at this here, Waikato Regional Council, lovely doing all this for everybody, when will this be transferred back to Taupo? Because everything you're telling me here has a long-term feel about it.
I'm afraid I'm unable to comment or answer.
Would you please take my request? It's on video cam back to your CEO.
I can take those questions back.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Hickley?
The total mobility scheme is quite separate to the actual public transport bus that goes around town, I believe.
That's correct. They're 2 separate programs, and they come from 2 different separate areas of funding. And the total mobility scheme.
That's more of a personal pickup service.
The total mobility scheme is a subsidised taxi service for people with mobility needs or mobility impairments, and there's certain eligibility criteria, so it's not open to everybody, but it is a national scheme.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Truman?
Yeah, in regards to the total mobility, what happens to people that live in Mangakino or Whakamaru villages? Do they have access?
So previously, there was no ability to provide it outside a boundary, because it was geographic. There was a geographic boundary, and now people within the district are now eligible to join that scheme, but they do need to have a total mobility provider who's able to provide that trip for them. So it's not just any taxi that can provide that.
So I'm just thinking, we've just got a new community van.
Yeah.
So with that community van, if it could potentially do this, do they have to apply to environment?
They have to meet certain criteria to be members of the total mobility scheme to provide those services. So there's certain criteria. if I can take your details post the meeting or post my session, I can get some feedback on you, and then you can direct them to the right place.
Councillor Williams?
We did have a presentation from you, I think, and another officer or a consultant that you had employed to look at ways of improving the numbers, and you were quite concerned at that stage. Could you tell me when that was?
We made the presentation to Taupo District Council. I think it might have been, was it February in this year? Yes.
And following on from our Mayor's comments, it does seem when we were so concerned about the low patronage then that it's taking you so long to change those routes as suggested and to launch a marketing campaign to try and increase the numbers. And so I have to express some disappointment in that.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Williams' comments. At the end of the day, it's Taupo District Council ratepayers' money that's paying for this, and I believe they should be running their own bus service and not promoting Waikato Regional Council. I mean, Councillor Downard?
I was just going to say that they are running at 36.7%, aren't you, to reach the 40? So you're not that far, and you've increased it regionally by 8.5%, haven't you? So with these changes with the Taupo, which we discussed at that workshop going past Hooker Falls and stuff like that, then hopefully that will pick up.
Further from anybody? Councillor Williams?
I guess my point is that it's taken the Waikato Regional Council 6 months to initiate the recommendations from this council, and to me that does seem quite disappointing.
None of my fellow councillors disappointed that you submitted to Waikato Regional Council annual plan and you haven't even had a reply? Like people that submit to us, we do reply to them. We haven't even had a reply. Am I the only person that's... Councillor Henderson?
Making public transport work and pay is very difficult. It would seem from what you've said to us today that what you're delivering in this district is in line with what you're delivering in other areas in terms of the usage and patronage, roughly. Would that be the case, or are we worse off or better off? How does that stack up?
That's a very interesting question, Councillor. I think across the region we have very different travel patterns. It's not uniform or consistent. So we have a mixture of urban, rural, and we have Taupo, which is separate from the rest of our network. It's not connected into the main sort of regional centre, which is Hamilton. And so it's got different needs associated with that. In terms of typical patronage for a peak bus, and the network here is predicated on one peak bus, we'd expect at least 100,000 trips for that peak bus. So you can see there's quite a difference in between what the local Taupo network is carrying and what we'd carry with that resource if it was applied elsewhere within the region, or what we could expect it to achieve elsewhere in the region. We've got areas of growth in the region, so we've got really strong trends there in terms of the satellites that feed into Hamilton at the moment. So working with Waipa and Waikato, we're tapping into that and providing alternatives for commuters there. So to get back to what we're expecting in terms of patronage, looking at this particular market, we wouldn't expect 100,000 because that's not realistic based on what you have here in terms of looking at that market assessment. But somewhere between 40 and 50, it seems to be the number that we should be aiming for in terms of patronage.
Question. In terms of getting there, what are the, say, 2 or 3 things that you think are the most critical to change to get there, to achieve those numbers?
I think we've made some of those changes in terms of we've looked at where we weren't carrying people, and so Sundays and public holidays are something that we've discontinued now because they weren't carrying passengers. We focused on having a more usable service in terms of out to Jarden Mile, with the number of return trips there that's been increased, and we've also looking at how we can promote it locally and also work with some businesses locally to try and generate additional trips.
If there's nothing further from fellow councillors, thank you very much for coming down from Hamilton and presenting us with how our bus service runs in Taupo and how good or not so good it's doing. So thank you very much.
And picking up on your comments earlier, I will take that feedback back to our council investigate why you haven't been
I
responding.
would
to.
appreciate it because it was a mandate from this council that we went through our submission and took the trouble to go through the submission process. And I have actually spoken to our CEO on a couple of occasions and asked him what is the progress in the mandate of the buses back under our own umbrella. For starters, it saves us $50,000 a year.
And you're aware that our new CEO doesn't actually.
Yeah, I realise that.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a transition process at the moment.
Thank you very much for coming down and presenting today.
Thank you.